Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode in the Explorica Motorsport series here with Skillshark EduTech in collaboration with Rev Mechanics BIT. Let me give you a small introduction to who we are if you're new here. So, Skillshark EduTech is an academically motivated startup, and we focus on imparting 21st century skills to the youth of today. What makes us different is our approach and motive to impart these skills. So, we're actually actively trying to optimize and tailor courses and webinar experiences for niche subjects that may not otherwise be easily accessible due to multiple different factors. We also focus on actively developing educational modules for specific real world applications. For example, one of the latest ventures that we've gotten into are electric vehicles. Our later series of courses have been primarily focused on electric vehicle technology and how we can develop skills in that part of the mobility sector. So right now, since India is currently facing a major skill gap, and the fact that it's actually being aggravated by the COVID-19 situation has motivated us to start this. Technology has a huge influence in the current mobility sector, and we're trying to bring the best out of. We're trying to bring out the best of those parts of the motorsport industry into the picture. So that's basically what our Explorica Motorsport series is all about. We've had quite a few sessions in the past. We've had teams that are working on Hyperloop concepts. We've had a Moto student team, and we also had a few racers who have come over and been a part of our webcasts. So today we're going to take a slightly different take. Obviously, we know that the entire world is facing an energy crisis, so it's quite a fitting discussion that we're going to have considering that topic. Now, let's take a small journey through the development of what was considered the beating heart of an automobile, and that's the engine. Roughly 300 years ago, we've seen the inception of engine design and development. The first engine was roughly around a 0.5 to 1% thermal efficiency, which, of course, for its time might have been good enough, but it's definitely not good enough for the power requirements needed today. However, over years of a lot of technology and research that's been developed, we've seen that turbochargers have helped a lot in terms of improving engine performance through increasing the compression ratio. Now, with the world facing a fast approaching energy crisis, everybody's scrambling their minds to convert to purely electric future. However, there is, of course, one middle ground, and that is purely focusing on the development of the current combustion engines to be more fuel efficient until we can completely vehicles. Today, we have a team that has extracted fuel efficiency levels that cannot be normal in their cars. For mileage, the official entrant represent SRM University at the Shell Eco Marathon. So they represent entire SRM Institute of Science and Technology from Kartankulathur. And they create vehicles which compete in a fuel efficiency centric competitions. So guys, we're very happy to have you on board today. Can we start off with a quick introduction from your ends and a brief overview of what each of you do in the team?
Yes, yeah, sure. I'll start with myself. I'm the domain of vehicle dynamics. I have designed the steering systems, and I am an integral part of the domain wheel assembly and braking.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Arjun Katyal, and I'm currently the technical director of Infion Super Mileage. And my domain is powertrain, and I basically deal with the tuning of the engine. Apart from that, I also help my batchmates in electrical, and I'm also good in manufacturing and welding of the vehicle.
Good afternoon. I'm Nilesh from the Vehicle Dynamics Department. Also, I work on chassis and infrastructure. Basically, the next venture we are going for is monocross. So, all the things about it.
Right, brilliant, awesome. So, as we see, just like all the other teams which we've seen before to our viewers, this is a project which once again requires a variety of disciplines to be applied to develop these vehicles. So, before we get into the details of how you develop your car, and the sort of techniques that you use to make it so fuel efficient. Let's go back to the past. Let's go to a point when the team actually started off. So where did the idea evolve, and how did the inception of Infion Super Mileage occur?
So it was back in 2011 when some of our seniors went to this event called Shelico Marathon, and it was held. It is an event which is held in Asia. So they thought that they came across this event which deals with improving the mileage of the car, and unlike other competitions, it was a bit unique. A bit unique, as you can see in the photos. Like these cars are a bit different from the normal cars. So they came across this competition, and after coming back to college, since SRM didn't have a team which was participating in Shelico Marathon, so they thought that that was the right time to for the inception for the team's Infion Super Mileage. So in 2012, they formed this team, which was the official Super Mileage team for the college.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, so foreign country in 2011. So where was this event taking place back then?
I guess this event was taking place in Singapore, if I'm not wrong.
I see. Right. So yeah, that's incredible. Yeah, these competitions, of course, they they have started from an international sphere. We have actually seen in the past that automotive, inceptions, all these sort of technologies have been rapidly accelerated in the wake of Formula One, which of course started only about 70 years ago. But like I had mentioned, engines have been in the process of being developed for almost 3 centuries now, from like a basic concept of an engine. And I did some research. I saw that Shelico Marathons actually has its roots tracing back nearly 80 years. It was some sort of a research project that started off somewhere in the year 1939, if I'm not mistaken. And as I understand it, there are actually multiple entry classes that are involved in the competition, right? So based on what sort of power you use to run your vehicle. So could you give a little bit insight as to the different types of systems that can be used in the cars that are run in the competition?
Yeah. So I'll brief you all with the competition. So Shelico Marathon is the official super mileage event which is organized by the Royal Dutch Group. So this event witnesses more than 120 teams from over 21 different countries. There are basically two categories of the vehicle. First one is the prototype vehicle, and the second one is the urban concept. So the prototype vehicle can be a 3-wheeler or a 4-wheeler, but the urban concept needs to be a 4-wheeler. So there are two categories. In these two categories, we further divide in three more different categories based on the fuel. So the first one is gasoline, the second one is battery electric, and the third one is hydrogen fuel cell. So these are the categories, and so in order to participate for the event, you need to register first approximately 4 to 5 months before the competition is taking place. And we are given a rule book according to which we need to build the car. So for example, in the rule book, it's all stated that your vehicle's track width should be between 800 to 1300 mm. Your wheelbase should be no longer than 1000 mm, like this. So you need to follow all that rules, and then you need to, once you go in the competition, they'll all test the technical inspection and the safety inspection of your cars. You are allowed to run your vehicle. If you're not able to clear the technical inspection and the safety inspection, you will not be allowed to run your vehicle over there.
I see. Right. So, yeah, that's an interesting overview of the competition. So, yeah, like you had mentioned, the three types of fuel or power sources that it can use are gasoline, battery electric, and the hydrogen fuel cell. So, what power does your team run on? I would presume, is it gasoline at the moment?
Yeah, we use gasoline.
Right. So, like you the three of you had said, you have a bit of vehicle dynamics mix, and you also have the powertrain end of things. So naturally, in a project of this nature, you will need a good powertrain structure to begin with, right? At this level, to focus on efficiency, especially. But also, it's no doubt a mechanical efficiency challenge as well, because when we see so many components and sort of technology that's coming out today, even if you look at electric drives, one issue is obviously making the power source itself efficient. But you also have that mechanical side of things. You have, I would assume, you potentially have things related to aerodynamics and the weight of the vehicle as well, which affects it. So, how does your team structure and the project approach itself, how does it revolve around these considerations? Could you also give us maybe a small overview of what each subsystem in your team does? And is there maybe some unique special subsystem that your team adopts that might not necessarily be there in other teams?
Yeah, sure. So I'll just brief you. Yeah, so as you asked that regarding the various subsystems in our team, so our team has 4 subsystems, which are powertrain, design and vehicle dynamics, electrical and electronics, and corporate. So powertrain deals with the engine and transmission of the vehicle. So I'll start with basic the design procedure. So as you know that as you mentioned that the engine is the main part of the vehicle, and that efficiency matters the most. So what we approach it like, first we decide the engine of the vehicle, like what are the various options available for us in the engine. Once we've decided the engine according to the power and its torque, then we finalize the transmission of that engine, how the power is going to go to the wheel, and then finally then we design the outer body of the car, like the shell, which you must have seen in the photos. So that is designed, and then eventually we try to put in all the components inside those inside the body. So yeah, powertrain deals with engine and transmission of the vehicle. So the domain solely focuses on increasing the efficiency of the vehicle by tuning various factors inside the ECU. So we use the ECU in order to change various factors. And the second one is design and vehicle dynamics. Design and vehicle dynamics is further divided into various categories. As I mentioned, I am in wheel assembly and brakes and steering systems. So it is further divided into chassis, steering, tires, aerodynamics, and composites. As regarding fuel efficiency, aerodynamics is an important factor. So we solely concentrate on building a shell which has least amount of drag coefficient. And the third one is electrical and electronics. This domain takes care of the wiring and all the sensors which are put in the vehicle. We built various sensors such as proximity sensors, RPM sensors. We even worked on tire temperature sensors. The work is still going on. So this electrical and electronic domain cooperates with the engine domain in order to put all the ECU wirings and all together and to make it work. And we also have a special domain which is known as corporate, which is rarely seen in other teams. This corporate domain focuses solely on the sponsorship part of the vehicle, and it focuses on the off-track awards. So these are all the 4 domains which are there in our team.
Right. So when you consider all of these domains, which is the one that's focused on the most when it comes to improving your car? I mean, naturally, my instinct would say it's your powertrain, which has to be completely oriented to maximize that power. But how much of a percent does aerodynamics and the mechanical resistances and also the compliance resistances that come from your chassis and those components, how much of an effect does that have on your performance? So through your design process, how much percent can that how much percent of efficiency can be improved by just focusing on mechanical alone?
Basically, like both the domains work side by side. Like you can't increase efficiency if you increase the optimize the engine, but the vehicle dynamics part is very weak. Like a vehicle is very heavy, or uh, other factors like that. The temperatures and all are not into consideration and all. So like both of these domains they work side to side. For the powertrain domain, the main motive is to decrease the fuel consumption. So for that, we do various stuff like piston coating. For example, like if we do piston coating, the temperature inside the combustion chamber is increased, and the carbon monoxide formation and hydrocarbon formation is reduced, which reduces the pollution as well as increases the thermal efficiency of the engine. And we do tuning. For example, we provide lean air fuel ratio to the engine, but for that we have to take into consideration like from like where is the event being happening. So we have to take that into consideration. For example, like we made a mistake around 3 to 4 seasons back. Our seniors told us. So basically, what happened was they tuned the engine in Chennai, but the event was somewhere where the temperature was quite low. So the my seniors faced problem over there. So like for that, what we do is we have net always. So we just gather the average temperature that would be around that month and on that location. According to that, we tune the engine. So this is for the powertrain domain. And if we consider the vehicle dynamics domain, so like they focus on reducing the temperature, reducing the weight. Sorry, reducing the weight. So for that, we use aluminum members and the component, like each and every subdomains, like the steering and the wheel assembly. My batchmates try to reduce the weight in each and every component. And like our vehicle don't have a suspension. So for that, we also have to compensate a little bit. Like we have to add extra 2 or 3 members over there to maintain the structural rigidity of the vehicle. So that is that. And like what we did in the previous season was we call it a hybrid technology. It was mentioned in our rule book. So what we did was we tried to make a series parallel hybrid. So in that, what we did was we extracted voltage and current from the magneto-coil while the engine was running, and we used supercapacitor, and we used it to charge the supercapacitors. The supercapacitors were further connected to the motor, and the motor and engine were coupled together using a coupling, and then the power was transmitted to the rear wheel. So what happens is like, for example, like for every 4 to 5 cranks, we generated sufficient energy to run our motor for around half a lap. So by that we achieved a quite good results, but we have to still optimize it. So we are trying to optimize it more.
That's interesting. Yeah. For all these modifications that you've done or you've tried on your engine, which engine model do you use to begin with? What is the standard model?
Like we use the Honda GY6 because it has a CVT, but it also has some drawbacks. Like it has a CVT and it's good as well as bad. So because of the CVT, the weight is around 18 to 20 kgs of the engine. And if we go with another engine, which is like we are going with a different engine this time because a lot of weight it is added. So what we are trying to do is like remove the CVT part of the engine. So around there we'll lose around 10 kgs, and instead of this shell and the chassis, we'll be trying to implementing the monocoque. So that's that.
That's nice. That's nice. Yeah. So coming to the shell itself, the chassis. So, no, before we get to the shell, let's actually look at the chassis. So you said it's primarily created with aluminum members, correct? As a tubular space frame chassis.
Yeah.
Right. So you said that it doesn't have a distinct suspension system itself, right? So can you explain how you've actually linked the front wheel assembly to the chassis, and also since it's only a singular wheel at the rear, how does that fit into your entire assembly?
So the suspension is not there. Instead of suspension is necessary when there's vibrations going on due to the environment and transferred load on the tires. So the competition, the roads are very good, and the speed are not that great, so that the suspension are really needed. The suspension creates a lot of more load rather than giving that extra comfort for the driver. So instead of the suspension, we used the connection you are saying, like how is the wheel connected to the chassis, right? So we use C brackets and a simple bolting system. And the rear wheels are also connected, like you see bicycle. In the bicycle, the tires are connected through just sliding into the frame. So that's how the rear wheel has been connected from the two sides.
I see. So then you just run a direct chain from your engine housing to the rear wheel, correct?
Yeah, we have a clutch in between the chain drive and the rear wheel to break the engine load. Like during coasting, we don't want some load acting on the rear wheel.
Right, that's interesting. So that means if you're going to coast, then you'll also still have based on your speed. If your speed is quite high, you will have the aerodynamic drag. But even if your speed is low, you'll still have the rolling resistance and the resistance that comes from the mechanical components itself, right? So do you do some sort of calculations on how much that affects the roll, and do you perhaps choose bearings according to that and tire pressures as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So then there are lots of things which affect your efficiency, as you mentioned, bearings. So obviously we go for bearings which are less in weight and which have less rolling resistance. So we currently used the bearings, I can't remember that name. So we use bearings which have less rolling resistance, and in tires also we use Michelin tires which are tubeless. So we try to reduce much of weight there, and being tubeless, they have their own advantages, like there is no pressure loss and all those things. So we try to maintain the pressure also. As I mentioned, that we also were working upon tire so that we can know what temperature is currently on that tire, and then we can alter other parameters relating to that. So the work is still going on regarding the tire temperature sensor. So the main things are tires and bearings, I guess.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely the bearings, perhaps, as I would assume, have a big influence. And of course, the tires, being filled with air, they have their own natural amount of damping. So, for example, if do teams perhaps fill? Do you have a restriction on what you fill into the air, into the tire itself? Because there are instances where in high performance racing as well, they fill in tires with nitrogen because they are less sensitive to temperature changes and density. So have you ever considered using different types of gases to fill your tires, or do you have to use a standard supply from the competition?
There's no specific rule regarding the specific gases which need to be filled in the tire. So till now we haven't tried filling nitrogen because one thing, it's not easily available and it's a bit costly. So we didn't fill nitrogen in the tires. We are still filling air only, normal air.
Right, right. That's good. Sorry, I keep sticking to efficiency because apart from just the powertrain, like you had mentioned, there are so many other mechanical components, and one component of great interest to me, especially, is the aerodynamics, of course. The interesting part about not making a monocoque here is you have the freedom to design your shell however you want it, just so that you have complete freedom in that shape since your structural members are not dependent at all on it. So how do you go about designing an optimal shell that has the least coefficient of drag? And to an extent, you also look at how much downforce it creates, because unnecessarily high amounts of downforce can also add to rolling resistance.
So basically in aerodynamics, like if we consider like aerodynamics, like the drag you're talking about, that drag acts on a vehicle if the speed is very high. So we have a less speed, like the average speed of a vehicle is around 20 to 25 kilometer per hour. So drag that doesn't affect that much, but it still does. So like the first and basic thing for aerodynamics is the airfoil shape. But when we consider the airfoil shape, we have to like take into consideration the rules provided by the Shell Eco Marathon. Like there are a certain rules which affect the shape of the shell. For example, the track width and the uh, wheelbase should be, the ratio of them that should be less than 1.25. I guess less than or
But
greater than.
I'm sorry, Arjun. I'm not able to. Could you speak a little louder into the mic? I'm not actually able to hear it. There's some background noise. Sorry about that.
Okay, wait a second. So basically, like the shell of
Yeah,
the, is it audible now?
yeah, it's better. That the noise is gone in your side now. Yeah.
Okay. So in the, like I was talking about the constraints that we have during the like making of the shell. For example, we have to the track width and the wheelbase should be in a ratio of 1.25, and the safety of the driver should also be taken into consideration regarding the visibility of the driver, as well as there's a rule in which there's the shoulder distance should be like the seat belt should be at a 10-degree lower than the uh, driver, and various other factors. So like we have a little bit of freedom, but we don't have like whichever design which we want. So that is that. And while making a monocoque, it's quite costly, and as a student we have to pass on every year, na? So we have to make a design such that if we design it according to this year's driver, then the next year's driver should also be able to drive it. And so we have a clearance, we have a crumple zone over there. So the like we don't get a lot of freedom in that, but still we try to do, like we achieve whatever is possible for us.
Okay, so in that case, if we're actually considering a monocoque, let's try to maybe put it in numbers just for the viewers to visualize it a little better. Um, how much weight do you think would be reduced if you were to switch to a monocoque design, and how much of an effect would that have on maybe efficiency? Uh, if you could give a rough number for maybe kilometers per
Uh,
liter, how much of an increase that could have?
like I'll try to do it, but
Yeah,
the
just
thing is,
approximate, even if it's just a random number, something around that.
see, see the things that are to be taken into consideration while monocoque is, like if we, like earlier we weren't using a monocoque, so our engine was quite heavy. But in order to implement a monocoque, we have to reduce the engine weight as well. So like for this vehicle which we are currently making, so while making a monocoque, like while combining the vehicle dynamics domain and powertrain domain, the weight we are reducing for the vehicle is around 12 to 18 kg, like 14 to 16 kgs. Like we are changing the engine, so the CVT part is also getting lost. So that part added to the weight loss with the monocoque, as well as the other small components. So the weight reduced would be around 14 to 16 kgs, and that would boost the mileage around 60 to 70 kmpl.
That's a significant improvement. Yeah, that seems like a lot more than what we might initially assume would be the gain. So that's quite impressive. So yeah, I think it's a good overview of your vehicle and how it's developed. And like you said, it starts off with the powertrain transmission, then you design the chassis around it, correct?
Yeah.
Right, right. That's cool. That's a very concise explanation, a good overview. I'm pretty sure our viewers have understood quite a bit of how their vehicle is designed. I think this is incredible what you're able to do with the basic set of components and just by focusing on these simple aspects. May I ask how much you're able to hit efficiency wise? How much on average you're able to hit every new season? How much you're able to improve?
The previous season, we were able to achieve around 120 kmpl, and the next season we registered a mileage of 148.6 kmpl. So like we had some issues over there, because while like it is not only about our competition is not only about the vehicle we make. It is more about, it is also like the strategies also plays a very important role. So like we had some issues last season. Like we had, the competition was held between our final exams. So like the competition was between 18 to 22nd, and some of us like majority of us had an exam on 22nd, 22nd I guess. So we weren't able, like we have only 2 days to run the vehicle, and we had exam on 23rd. I remember we had exam on 23rd, and we only had 1 day to register the mileage. So for the first run, it was invalid. Like we have a certain limit, like we have to complete the 9 laps in a time gap of 22 minutes. It's basically upon the track which the shell provides. So we had to complete within 20 minutes, 22 minutes, but we took a little more time. So that run was invalid. The next run we registered 148.6. The third run, which it was going quite well. Like we expected a mileage of around 170 to 180, because we were cranking a lot less because of the new strategy. So, but in the second last lap, we had like our tire got punctured. So we weren't able to register on, like that was the last run we had. The next day we had to go, like our drivers had to go to give the exam. So we weren't able to participate in the last day. So like this time we are trying to achieve a mileage of more than say 250 kmpl whenever the event is held. So we are just keeping our expectations high this time.
So it's a good target. That's I mean, if you were to ever tell somebody that your vehicle runs with 250 kmpl, I think people would be incredibly impressed, especially when you have a commercial vehicle that runs somewhere on average 20 to 25 based on your car. And when you look at race cars, when they run way worse than that, this is really an incredible number that you've put there. So congrats on that. You said you actually, so you run your car. And I mean, even I spent majority of my 4 years at SRM at the Fab Bay as well. So I know that the stretch over there, it's made of concrete. It's a cement and concrete mix, that entire lane. So how much of an effect does that have in your calculations? Because surely the efficiency you get while running on a concrete road is going to be completely different from what you would get when you run on an actual tarmac circuit, correct?
Yeah. It's very different. Like as you may know, like there's a straight stretch over there, and we have to take a very sharp turn to like bring the vehicle back, like to complete the laps. So like a lot of efficiency is lost there. So whatever mileage we measure in during the testing of the vehicle, we expect around 20 to 20 kmpl more during the track, like more during the event, because of the conditions and all. So
right. And like you said, yeah, the engine as well. Obviously, when you test, when you run your engine here in Chennai, it's more, there's high amount of humidity in the air. The air's a lot hotter. It's very different from perhaps what you would run in a colder climate. But surprisingly enough, it's very similar to that in Singapore. So how do you actually factor this into account when you run your engine on a jig? Do you again get some sort of a value from your testing jig and then use some sort of correction factor and multiply it, or do you kind of go with the value that you have and uh, just adjust it randomly at the event? How does it actually work, your
Uh,
calculations?
we we take both the things, like both the things you mentioned into consideration. Like we generally make two cal files. So the first one is like, for example, the temperature of the engine in Chennai is supposed to be between 40 to 50, and what we see in Singapore is around 50 to 60. So what we do is like we overheat a engine a little bit, and after that we try our tuning. So we save that cal file in a that we keep that in separate. And apart from that, the second file which we make, we like as you said, we multiply it with the correction factor, but we have to change it in during the event. Like we have to run it over there during according to that temperature conditions, and then we have to tune it there itself. So like if we have a base file, then it is very easier for us to just do a little bit of changes and then run for the vehicle, run for the test.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, it's always comes back to temperature. Whenever you look at
Yeah.
vehicles, if you're going to compare, if you're going to look at tire performance, you look at, for example, what's going to happen perhaps this weekend at Nürburgring with the cars running on really cold temperatures. You're always having that as a factor in vehicles. So it's unsurprising, but also really interesting to hear that the amount to know of the amount of to know of the effects that temperature has in your engine performance here. So yeah, that's I think it's a good overview of the car. Let's kind of shift to the competition in perhaps the last 20 minutes that we have. So and it would be really great to have your inputs as well, Harditya and Nilesh. So it's more related to the competition itself. So you talked about the scrutineering and the safety scrutineering that goes on. But what else goes on? What are the factors that your car is judged on? Do you have some sort of an endurance event in the running event side, the dynamic side? And also, can you give a brief overview of the static events and what you want in that domain?
Apart from the other competitions like FSE and all, so there are no kind of static events in this particular event. This is solely depending on the mileage efficiency. So before the competition, we have this safety inspection and technical inspection. So everything is considered in that, and after passing that, we are able to go for the run on the track. So a 1 day gap is been given to the endurance testings and all, so that the teams get familiar with the environment and all the other factors regarding the track and all, so that they can make strategies according to it. Apart from the main event,
Okay,
there are
and how long is that event? Oh,
yes, yes.
yeah, no, I was just asking. So, how long does that event last where they test your efficiency? Yeah, yeah. Like
Okay, so
the distance that you need to cover in that.
okay, so it's a 4 day event. The first is you can like the technical inspection and all are open for you first 3 days. You can go anytime if there's a issue with your vehicle and all. But solely we try to make it up in the first day itself, so that the next day are utilized for the practice sessions and all. So the second day the track is been open and it is solely for the practice sessions. No mileage is being calculated over here. The teams are supposed to do it on their own, so they can so they do the testing, they modify the calipers, they change the tires if they want, and all these things. On the third and the fourth day, the actual event gets started for the efficiency. So there are different timings for the prototype events and the urban concept too. And that's all for the event side. And apart from the technical run, there are other off-track events which are held regarding the Technical Innovation Awards, the Communication Awards, and the like creating best out of like renewing things to reduce the carbon emissions and all. So all these are the off-track events that are there.
I see. Right. So obviously the prototype event you've talked about, but in terms of the urban concept event, is that similar to what you do, but it's more oriented for a bigger vehicle? Like you said, it's supposed to be four wheels, but what other specifications does that competition require in that class?
The prototype is open for any new development, and all this new things are accepted in the prototypes, but the urban concept is solely depends on the cars that run on the roads. So it mainly oriented on the industrial perspective view, so that with the current technologies and a little bit of according to the teams and all, so they try to maximize the efficiency. So the rule book is very different over there. So they are allowed to even run on a rainy day, but the prototype is not. They are met to the conditions that their car can run for the regular purposes and all, for the current market things. And
Right. Yeah. So yeah, let's continue on that line. Let's get to the practical benefits of the prototypes that you develop. So some of the important considerations to take into account is obviously the fact your vehicle is, of course, a single seater, which and has a three-wheel concept. And it's also highly dependent on lifting the throttle and coasting. Now, this doesn't seem very practical from a commercial point of view. So, how will you actually scale up some of the developments you make in the prototype? How do you think that can actually fit into the current development of combustion vehicles in the industry?
Hello, am I audible?
Hello? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So as you asked us that how we implement the things which we do in the commercial cars. So as of now, there are quite less things which can be implemented from our car to the commercial car, because it's a very different scenario. So like the ones which you can use to in a commercial car is all the tunings which we do on the engine. So that tuning if you do on a commercial car, maybe it can help a bit in increasing the mileage. And also the various sensors which are there in our vehicles, such as proximity, or there which are used in today's commercial cars. Also, the tire temperature sensor, which we are currently working upon, I guess that can be used in commercial cars in order to take there are various systems in the commercial car which tell you the characteristics of your tire. So that can also be integrated in commercial vehicles.
Absolutely, that sounds good. That sounds good. I mean, the sort of developments you're doing on your engines, on the tuning of that engine, that definitely, that's what I really expected would be a really good takeaway, and that's actually really great what you guys are doing in that side. But yeah, it's good that you mentioned even the vehicle dynamics, something interesting. Understanding how to monitor tires is very crucial, not just in commercial vehicles, but also when you look at competition. So yeah, this is really a interesting insight for sure. It's not just about creating an efficient vehicle. It's good to see the sort of concepts that can be taken and put into the real world. Um, there is a gradual transition to combustion engines from combustion engines to electric power, but many times generally we all tend to forget the presence of hybrid power, which is something that has sparked up, but people seem to quickly be shifting to electric technology. But of course, hybrid technology has helped petrol powered engines reach nearly 50% efficiency, as we've seen in motorsport and some of the supercars that have been developed recently. um, so how do you think the all of this technology kind of ties in with what you do? Do you see some sort of application in what you've developed in a hybrid sphere? You had talked about creating a parallel series hybrid with your engine. So have you done any more development on that? What are some of the challenges you face in that?
Like we have done a little bit more than that. Like we are continuously optimizing it, but like as far as like you said, the hybrid technology, like basically hybrid technology is the gateway between a IC engine and the electric. So like nowadays the only problem in electric vehicle is that we can't like we have to run like we can't run it for a longer period of time. So only that is the problem with electric. It is definitely more efficient than any other vehicle. So what we plan to achieve by implementing the hybrid series was as you know, there's a in a motor the initial torque is very high as compared to an engine. So what we wanted to achieve was the initial torque should be provided by the motor, and then the engine and or the IC the engine jumps in and takes the power away. So that was what we were trying to achieve. We are also again working on it, and according to me, hybrid should be implemented, like should be considered a little bit more than electric, because like till the problem with electric vehicle regarding the distance or the time is not like not rectified or optimized. Till that we can go with the hybrid, because like in if you are having a hybrid vehicle and in case your electric power goes out, or you are not able to run the battery on like the vehicle on electric power, you can always go with the engine. Like you will have a little bit of gasoline in it, so you can basically run till the next charging station or the next petrol pump. So that is, according to me, more achievable and more efficient in the coming run. But in case of hybrid vehicle, it's more the mechanism and all the vehicle is quite costly as compared to the pure electric or pure mechanical, like pure gasoline car. So that can be achieved over the year, and the complexity is also more in a hybrid vehicle. So like everything
Absolutely,
has a pros and cons over there.
yeah, I think I agree with you there in terms of how hybrid is like a good middle ground. Adding on to your point, I think electric vehicles, another issue is they tend to be a lot more heavy than combustion vehicles. Perhaps, yeah, the power efficiency in terms of power output efficiency might be there, but the power to weight itself is also a big issue at the moment. And adding on to that, of course, cooling electric vehicles, the cooling systems become a lot more complicated for the motors. But definitely an interesting take. I think your concepts that you're developing are, I think they're very important at the moment, very applicable to the industry. Even though everyone is shifting to electric, I think the research you're doing in engines right now, and I hope the viewers also agree with this. It's definitely going to be and be applied and help the industry at least buy some more time until we can make a complete shift to electric technology. Hopefully, as many have planned in the at least in the next 10 years. And even when it comes to manufacturing, some of these concepts of improving engine efficiency can be applied to manufacturing techniques, not just for running vehicles. Because after all, even manufacturing electric components, the electric industry will still need thermal power to generate and develop their components. So yeah, I think it's a good way to kind of wrap it all together. Um, so let's, in the last 10 minutes, can we, if can you run us through some of the memorable, some of the good memories you guys have created, some of the turning points, maybe the highs and lows that you faced in competitions. I see there's a picture of you winning an award here. Could you tell us the story of this?
Yeah. This is the photo, recent photo, 2019 event which was held in Bangalore. So we participated, like Arjun said, we just had 3 days to participate, and in the final run we had our tire puncture. So we lost all hopes there, and we were returning with a very sad mood. Like we couldn't do well in our competition, and the results were pretty clear that we are not going to win it because the other team had more mileage than us, and we were not running the other day. So it was all clear that we couldn't be winning this competition. So we were all hoping for the off track awards. So as we mentioned that there are four off track awards. So communications awards is basically related to how you publicize your team along with Shell. So and Shell sees that how far is your reach to the people, and how do you contribute telling people that what you do and what Shell does. So in this award, we uh, conducted several campaigns, and we did several webinars and all. So on the final day, the results were announced, and we were awarded the communications award. So yeah, that was a very happy moment for all of us.
Right. How about Arjun and Nilesh? How about you guys? Do you guys have any other special moments that you guys could remember? Something personal to you guys as well, because we really want our viewers to see what you can actually learn, what you can actually be a part of by joining these teams.
So on the day of award giving ceremony, I'm from the mechanical department, and the other team guys, the majority of the guys were from the automobile. So on the last day we couldn't go on the track, right? So all these automobile department guys were writing their papers in the university, and I was there on the last day with three more guys. We didn't have our uh, driver over there, so we were all sitting there looking at the teams that they were going on the track, and they were registering some mileage and all, and we were just sitting there like hoping for like at least we can get this award, the off track awards and all. So and even like on the last day when the ceremony was there, the next day we also had our papers. So we have to reach there early, and the bookings were all done, and so the tickets were booked. So that last half an hour gap was we put the half an hour gap so that we can attend the first half of the ceremony and then go to the airport for next day exams at the university. So in that half an hour, it was very we were very hoping that we get something or the other words. And as soon as they mentioned that this team has been working for the last 7 months in communicating with the people around there to how they can optimize their life and vehicles and all, so that the environments get a more better better, and they increase the efficiency and all. And as soon as they announced that Infront Super Mileage got the communication award, we were at heights like, okay.
So according to me, like my experience, like the best thing that ever happened to me was joining this team, and like for me, every moment is a very good memory from the day one which I joined the team till the currently I am. So like each and everything had been a memory that we continuously worked for around like we after the college got over around 5 in the evening. So from then till the midnight around 4 to 5, we used to work over there. We had like we when we get bored, we started playing football in front of the Fab Bay, as you might know. You might have also played there. Like going to the night canteens and like working side by side, helping each other, and like each and everything is a very good memory to me. Like this was the first award which we won. Apart from that, we won like in 2018 we won the Spirit of the Event award, and we have been second for the past consecutive 2 years. And like I have some things like there are some moments which I wanted to be present there, but I wasn't. Neither was Harditya, as Anilesh shared his experience about the last day of the event. But like we worked hard and all, so everything is a memory to me, and I'm very happy to be in this particular team. And like if I start my experiences, like good experience, then it would take around 24 to 48 hours to complete me over there, because like the journey was for around 2.5 years and it's still going on. And the only thing I regret is like why am I still at house during because of this pandemic. I wanted to be there. It's my final year and I'm still sitting at home. Like that is the only thing I'm going to regret for the rest of my life, I guess.
Hang in there. I'm pretty sure, hopefully, in the next few months, things will stabilize, but difficult to say. But yeah, I was really happy hearing you guys talk about all these good experiences. Brings back a lot of memories. I think for me, I worked in camber racing for all 4 years of my time in SRM. So it was definitely a life-changing opportunity to be able to work in a technical team. So I hope this is at least inspiration enough for our viewers here to get involved in stuff. And even if you're not already a part of the team, or if you're if you're probably in your final year and you're not able to get involved in a team, or even if you've graduated, always know that these competitions do require volunteers. They need people who are interested in technology, people who really love automobiles, people who are interested. And it's not just automobiles. There are so many other competitions. There are copter development competitions, robotics competitions, UAVs, underwater vehicles. There's so many opportunities. So what we really want you guys to learn, what we really want you all to get inspired to do is take part in these competitions, get involved in some sort of an engineering project. Trust me, it does pay off. Like these guys has mentioned, I mean, you work so hard and then you bag an award when you're really holding on to it. It's definitely a feeling which can't be described. And these guys explained it as best as they could. And we've got that emotion, but you really need to be there to experience it. So yeah, I think on that note, let's end this discussion. It's been a great opportunity and privilege to have you guys on board today. Thank you so much, Harditya, Arjun, and Nilesh, for taking your time to be here to share your experiences. I learned a lot about the Shell Eco Marathon. I knew quite a bit before, but not to the depth of what you've explained, the sort of technology you implement to improve your vehicle. So thank you guys. Thanks a lot for being here. I hope it was a good session for you too.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, really nice talking to you.
Thanks. And one more thing for our viewers, we do have a seminar coming up next week. It has been delayed a couple of weeks now, but we definitely do have an aerodynamics seminar coming up next week that I'll be hosting. So follow our page, keep track of what we're doing. We'll be posting a trailer very soon, and we hope to see you guys there. We'll be continuing our Explore series next week. Until then, take care. Thanks for watching, and thanks for joining us, guys.